Gamecock fans, now you can have your coffee and also support the Gamecocks in a championship quest to get to the top of the SEC and the top of the country by going to GamecockCoffee.com and purchasing Rise and Shine New Orleans Roast Gourmet Coffee. All of your purchases go to benefit Garnet Trust and put NIL dollars in the coffer of the Gamecocks official NIL collective. Check it out today and support the Gamecocks NIL efforts. Good morning, Gamecock fans. Welcome into Coffee. I am JC Shurburtt. Today is Monday, March the 10th, the year of our Lord, 2025, and I'm certainly happy to be with you on a Monday morning out there in Gamecock land or whatever land you may reside in. Gamecock interested land, is that a way to put it? I don't know, but certainly a interesting weekend. Some good, some bad, some promising. I don't know. I thought it was eventful to say the least. Hats off to Dawn Staley and the women's basketball team. I, you know, I've been on this rankings kick and griping and complaining about it because I think sometimes, and maybe it's because I'm in the Gamecock bubble. I didn't used to feel this way, but it just seems like South Carolina across the board in any sport. It's like other programs, because of the perception of those programs, can lose or whatever. I don't know how you have a not so great perception of the Gamecock women's basketball program. They're the best program in the country, but it just seems like, oh well, their reign's over. let's let's do it, and let's my bad on that. That's I just noticed on the camera that there's this wire sticking into my face. So you lost to Texas, held the road. It doesn't matter that you beat them by 17 points at home. They're the best team in the country because you lost to UConn. And the UConn loss was shocking. 29-point defeat at home. I could see that. But everybody else seems to kind of move up with one little thing, and the Gamecocks don't. I don't know. That's just the polls. They don't matter. The net is what matters, and the Gamecocks are sitting pretty in that as far as the NCAA tournament goes. But I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, there's not a ton of difference, really. There shouldn't be between the number one and number five team in the country. You know, as far as you don't think South Carolina's that much worse than Texas, but the Gamecocks were that much better than that team. And the game in Austin was a barn burner almost. I mean, it was really close. And the other two, Carolina waxed them. So to me, I was just like, well, they got it wrong. But that's over. Like I said, in basketball, the rankings that the media does, they just do that for the media, the TV media, to kind of know who to run what highlights and what games to highlight and stuff like that. It serves its purpose, but I just thought it was kind of off, and that one off Sunday afternoon against a really good UConn team, which is probably the best team in the country right now. Um, one off game, put them way down below the likes of Notre Dame and Texas and teams like that. So I don't know. I think they got some vindication. I think that's good. I think anytime you have a program that's rolling like the Gamecocks are, sometimes I saw this with Alabama football. Sometimes it's good to get that motivation and to be able to play the underdog a little bit or to play the disrespect card. You have such great athletes and great players on your roster, and it doesn't come. I'm not going to say it comes easy. Nothing comes easy, but it comes naturally to them. And sometimes it's you get complacent or you have an off day and you don't know how to handle it and things like that. But I think all the experience with the SEC tournament in Greenville, this is going to do this team good as they head into NCAA tournament play. And hats off. It's just special to have a program like that at the University of South Carolina. I mean, that's really, really something that the school can hang its hat on. And the Gamecocks have never been this good nationally, this consistently in any sport. And I say that with a lot of respect for the Tanner era in baseball, because I know baseball was really good nationally in that sport for a while. But this is kind of, I don't think anybody would argue that South Carolina during that baseball period was the national championship favorite every year. It just baseball doesn't really work that way. It was the most consistent program in the country. It was overall the most winning program in the country. It did have two national championships and played for four during that period. But this is a dynasty kind of deal, and it's dynastic what the women's basketball program's doing. So I don't know. Don't get mad at me about that. I love Carolina baseball. Please don't. I don't want to hear that. I'm not. This is. It's not a debate. It's just an opinion. No back and forth, please. I can't get drug into a Dawn Staley's women's basketball program versus Ray Tanner's baseball program debate right now. I just can't do it. But I do think that when you look at what's been done with this program, it's historic. And hats off to them. Hats off to the Gamecock fans that showed up big in Greenville. In basketball, obviously, it's an advantage to have a home crowd. I mean, let's not lie with that. Let's not get that twisted. But certainly, and it helped. But certainly an impressive run. Vandy kind of came back on them and made it a game for a while. Carolina ended up blowing them out. They blew out Oklahoma and the two newcomers, Oklahoma and Texas, back to back. So, yeah, always good to beat Texas in anything as well. I'll keep that going. Out in Norman, Oklahoma, speaking of newcomers, softball, heartbreaking, but promising. And so, I caught some of the softball series, and I can't break it down. I just watch and cheer, I guess. Or hope good things will happen. I don't know about Chimmin up sitting there yelling at the computer screen or anything like that. Just hoping good things happen and some exciting moments. It's a pretty good fast-paced sport, getting into it and all that. And have a lot of respect for Ashley Chastain Woodard and the job that she does here and the job she did in Charlotte. And she's an alum. And softball is a sport that South Carolina should be good at. It's a softball state. It's warm weather, all that good stuff. So Oklahoma, as I said, is the Roman Empire of college softball. My gosh, did you see that stadium they play in? That's bigger than most college baseball stadiums. Outfield stand, Grant. I mean, wow. That's nice. Love's Field, like the truck stop. I think I pass when I drive back to South Carolina. I think I pass at least 20 Loves and Pilots and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's there and it's first class. And the Gamecocks lose 10-9, 10-9, and 2-1. Whew, man, want to talk about frustrating? I think when a coach is in their first year, though, and softball's been okay. I guess okay would be a good way to describe it. Really bottom third of the SEC, but able to make regionals and sometimes make some noise. But you look at it now. You look at Carolina versus Oklahoma, and it's Chastain Woodard's first year, and Oklahoma's been doing it for a long. Patty Grosso, is that her name? She's been doing it a while, winning titles, and to go out there and lose one-run games, it's frustrating and it stinks. But I think what that gives is hope. If you're in your seventh year and you're like, man, you lost these people again, and it's by one run, maybe it's loss is a loss. But in your first season, you look at that. So they're 0-3 in the SEC after starting undefeated, but you rally, you come back. I believe Coastal Carolina is next this week, and then you start, I think Georgia is the next softball opponent. So you just get back and try to win your share. Hopefully it doesn't take a lot out of your team. It's a good team. Some good players. The transfer portal was very, very good to her this offseason. So hats off to the effort. It's disappointing to lose, but, one of two things here. Number one, either Oklahoma's going to find out the SEC is not the Big 12 pretty quick, and all the games are going to be like that for the Roman Empire. Or number two, South Carolina Could be pretty good this year. And number three, it could be a mix of both, just to be honest. But it's kind of funny because sports is a weird thing. The softball team goes 0 and 3, right? The baseball team goes 3 and 0. I think most people, including myself, feel a lot better about the softball team. Now, a lot of it's who you play. I mean, don't tell Ward Manuel that because obviously he doesn't think it's who you play. But it's interesting. The baseball team, I mean, man, I don't know. I it's weird watching. There's a lot of weirdness going on from where I sit. Now you're like, JC, weird. What do you mean? It just doesn't seem. All right, there's not a lot of enthusiasm, first and foremost. And I think the weather, my theory about the lack of crowds at the game has been the weather. And South Carolinians, yes, that's not, don't want to go sit out in cool or cold weather and watch baseball. Baseball's a warm weather sport. We get that. Plus, this past weekend, with the women's basketball team being right up the road in Greenville, playing for titles, and it's indoors, and it's the SEC tournament, and Morehead State's coming in for baseball. I mean, you're probably not gonna get into the Clemson loss. Let's just call it what it is. That saps some enthusiasm away. Um, and just a bizarre series. Now, I went back and looked at some of the results that Morehead State had this year. And heck, they played a 22-21 game. It's kind of all over the map. They're not a bad baseball team. Probably better than Sacred Heart in Milwaukee, I would think. But man, the first game it was a come from behind win. The second game, you blow a 12-1 lead and win 16-11. And then Sunday was a 1-0 pitcher's duel. That's crazy. So it's hard to get a handle on things. I mean, it's like, well, you know, 11-7, 16-11. You think, well, the pitching's rough. 1-0, you think, well, he can't hit. I don't know. I just, I would love to say I'm confident that they'll get things rolling and, beat Oklahoma this weekend in the SEC opener at home, which is a big series because check this out. After Oklahoma, it's at Arkansas and then Tennessee comes to town. Which I think for most Gamecock baseball fans, saying the words Tennessee and tough, rough series in this sport is a hard pill to swallow because they were not very good. They had some good moments through the years, but they were nothing like they are now, which is, a really dominant SEC baseball team that's they haven't messed around this preseason, but there's some concerns. Not going to get into them right now here on coffee because I don't want to misspeak. But John Whittle will be on Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show today, and Jamie Bradford will talk. All the baseball folks will talk about it. Maybe there's some positives I'm not hitting, but it's crazy. Like I said, crazy away from softball. They're 0-3. You're kind of encouraged, and baseball's 3-0. You're like, I don't know, brother. I don't know about this. But they'll play Georgia State this week before the Sooners come to town. Hopefully, you don't drop one to Georgia State midweek. It can happen, but hopefully you don't. And the record will be 15-3. That's a really respectably good record for the non-conference. But really, the toughest team you played was Clemson, and that wasn't competitive. So we'll see. Baseball's funny. Baseball can go up, they can go down, they can, you can struggle. One of Tanner's teams, I think, started 1-5 in the SEC and ended up winning it, or at least coming close. So we'll see. But just like in men's basketball and football and everything else, the league's a bloodbath. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, you just are not going to have any games where you can mess around, especially blow a 12-1 lead. I mean, they didn't blow it, right? but it got way too close. And it was tough because you're sitting there and they subbed liberally. And so a lot of the frontline players are on the bench. It's not like other sports, I think, where you can put guys back in, right? So anyway, baseball, we're going to find out some more about this team this weekend with Oklahoma coming to town. Expect some good crowds out there at Founders Park, Ray Tanner Field. So, yeah, so interesting weekend for sure. The men's basketball team lost to Tennessee. Competitive game for the first half. Better performance on the road. For those of you that are big Spur members, I put a report out about what's going to happen moving forward. I touched on that on the show at the end of last week. I feel better about where things are after having some conversations. But let's say it's going to be a big off season for Lamont Paris, and roster is going to be a big focus with it. So we'll see what happens there. And before we get into football, I want to tell you about our good friends at Palmetto Golf and Belts, palmettogolfing.com. Check out their stuff, folks. It's really nice. And the price is right. You can get one of the handcrafted nice belts with the Palmetto and Crescent and Gamecock colors for about 66% of what you would normally pay at a retail outlet. Plus, they have towels, tees, they have patriotic things, faith-based things. PalmettoGolfing.com. It's almost golf season, or it is golf season, as we all know, in South Carolina. So go check them out and be sure to support them. Also, help out the NIL efforts at South Carolina. And I kind of explained this both on the show and the other day, but I'll reiterate it here for this audience. There's going to need to be kind of a, I don't know, bridge. I would say bridge funding, NIL wise. And it's not just Garnet Trust and selling coffee and things like that. There's other methods of doing it, and the athletics administration is working on it. My understanding is, but what I was told, and I think where the disconnect maybe has been when we've talked about rev share and things like that is, yes, rev share kicks in this year, but it doesn't start. And this is why sometimes people that talk about, well, if any business is this business as far as college, this is one of the reasons it's not a business like normal business, right? First, there's no profit. They're not chasing profits. That's I could do a whole show on the difference between this, but so the lawsuit settlement with the House settlement where rev share kicks in is not starting until the start of the fiscal year, which is the start of the academic year, but it ignores the recruiting periods, which is the whole purpose behind all of this stuff is to not let it infect recruiting. So anyway, and so they're leaving these wide open, so rev share will kick in next academic year, right? But recruiting for next academic year will be complete by the time it kicks in. So what's happening is, and we've talked about this during the football transfer portal period, collectives are sitting on a pot of money, largely booster funded, that they can't spend after July 1st. So they're front loading deals. So we have the basketball off season of the Wild West. I believe we'll have a baseball season that will be the Wild West prior to July 1st. And we've got another football transfer portal period that will be the Wild West, and what schools are doing with the booster money that they can't spend after July 1st. They're front loading deals. So, in other words, player A will sign with school X for 800 grand. And maybe that number, when rev share kicks in, is 2, but they get 6. It's kind of like the signing bonus kind of thing with the NFL draft. You guys are familiar with that. So that's kind of what's happening. Carolina, I mean, everybody, same thing, which is smart, financially, but it does drive up the market. That's why football, despite really the transfer portal not being quite as good as it was the year before. I mean, the year before you had Quinshad Judkins and Walter Nolan and a lot of guys that were big time difference makers. This year, if Carson Beck is one of your best portal guys, I don't know. I just I don't know. There just wasn't as many good players, and but yet the prices shot through the roof. It's kind of like the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. They want you to pay astronomical prices for a non-premium product. Uh, anyway, different subject there. But so what's happening is the money is going to be competitive, even though the rev share budget for next year for a lot of these schools may be 3.1 million. They're going to spend the collective NIL money before July 1st to do it. Same thing all over the place. So there's going to have to be, Carolina's no different than anybody else. They're going to have to come up with some monies to be competitive. I understand that's well on its way. But with Gamecock Coffee, you can help out. GamecockCoffee.com. Had a few sales come in over the weekend. As I said, it's a gradual approach, but please continue to help me spread the word on that. So football, it's uh, it's a subject that we have not touched on here hardly, but got some new information, intel, um, feedback, whatever you want to call it, and figured it was a good time to discuss it. Spring practice will be right around the corner, and one player that will be in spring practice that was not last year is Nyck Harbor. He ran track and did not participate in spring practice for football last season. That's not going to happen this season. It's football for him. And so, you have this guy that was a massive recruiting win for a number of reasons. It was the second signing day, the traditional signing day. Nobody else really all that good was signing. South Carolina got him over Oregon and Miami and other big time schools. And he was the first out of state five consensus 24/7 sports composite 5-star South Carolina had signed in the modern era. And it was on this national stage. Shane Beamer's on ESPN. I mean, that was a good day. They were coming off the 2022 season where there was a good finish. That was big for the program for that to happen. And of course, he's a freak athlete 6'5, 235, 441, 439 in the 40, blistering 100-meter time. Olympic level sprinter, could Olympic aspirations for him are real. And so he comes and in high school, he was D end, tight end. And at Carolina, he's a receiver. So you got to make him into a wide receiver. That's easier said than done, especially if you have not played that position your entire life, where you're counted on to have the ball and to block on the perimeter, which he's pretty good at, and things like that. So the first year, South Carolina didn't have a lot of depth at receiver, and so he kind of got in there and started a bunch of games. Really good game against A&M. Then he hit a wall and finished. I thought it was respectable. What I liked about him, I've said this before, is he caught everything. And after seeing some of these receivers around here the last 10 years with the drops, including guys like Deebo Samuel that are great players and Brian Edwards that are great players and, Josh Van, who ended up being really good at the end, I'll take it. 12 catches, 195 yards, and a touchdown. About half of those came against A&M out of College Station. But, I mean, good player. I mean, good start. And I thought if he could get, I was saying 30 catches would be a good year for him this next year because, no spring practice, still learning the position. He's a bit raw, and he almost got there. I thought Nyck, from the time he caught the pass against Alabama on, and he didn't have a catch in the A&M game. Carolina just kind of ran the ball in that one. But, you know, I thought that catch against Alabama gave him confidence. That was the player that we want. We thought about Nyck Harbor, big guy, can go up and get it, catch touchdowns, that kind of thing, and that was good. That got him going. And so from that point on, I thought he really kind of turned it on, which kind of that's normal, with a player that's still learning his way. I know he works as hard as anybody, and that hard work has paid off. It's obvious when you look at his numbers and look at him on the field. From the Vanderbilt game on, he was really consistent. 3 for 43 against Vandy, 2 for 69, and two passes in the Missouri game, one for a touchdown. That's kind of what you think about when you think about a big 6'5" receiver that can run, that can do things. 3 for 48 against Wofford, 3 for 51 against Clemson, 4 for 61, a season high against Illinois in the bowl. So he started getting consistent, and that's one step. The first step I thought was first year catching everything, and he's still pretty consistent. Nobody's immune to dropping it, but it's not. You don't look at Nyck Harbor's performance on the field in games and say, he can't catch, he drops it, because he doesn't. Now, does he look natural doing it? Probably not. Does he look like he's fighting the ball sometimes? Yes, but he catches it. I don't care. Just catch it. If you start dropping it, that's a problem. And when I mean dropping it, I mean drop it consistently. And I'll tell you, he drops them in practice sometimes, but he catches them in practice sometimes too. So how do you get Nyck Harbor to that next step? Because I'll tell you this right now, the video game thing is ridiculous. I mean, that's Randy Moss on that video game. That's not Nyck Harbor. I don't know that Nyck Harbor will be Randy Moss. I don't know that he's that natural of a football player. But can he be somebody else? Absolutely. And I think some guys just take time. Brad Crawford from 24/7 Sports, and there are two things that made me think of this topic today, other than intel. And Brad Crawford said he's the number two. He ranked the fastest players in college football. Nick was number two. So who knows? I'd like to see him race whoever the number one was. I just kind of looked and saw it was number two. And then DK Metcalf got traded from the Seahawks to the Steelers. And Mike Morgan was talking about he's talked about this before, where DK kind of at Ole Miss was not a player that set the world on fire right away. I think he was a high 4-star prospect, a highly recruited guy from the state of Mississippi. But by the time he got to be a senior or upperclassman, he was a stud and kind of that big guy, just like Harbor. You could say Xavier Legette too, and use that as an example. That's a guy that came in, fast player, promising, did some good things in 19, got hurt in 20 and 21. By the end of 22, he's kind of the last man standing after Juice Wells got hurt in the bowl, and he had a great game, and that facilitated his senior year where he 71 catches, first round draft pick. I mean, you could use that. I think Xavier is a different type of player than Nick, different type of athlete, that kind of thing, but they're both big and fast. So if you can get a potential senior year out of Nyck Harbor like you got out of Xavier Legette, then awesome. Because this guy, Nyck Harbor, when he gets going as a football player, it's gonna look great. Now, the intel, working hard, as I've said, and I've been told by more than one person, he's improved. He's gotten better. This spring is going to be big for him. He works exceptionally hard, And another guy that worked exceptionally hard was Alshon Jeffrey. Said it before, practice used to be open back in the day, and you'd sit there and get done with practice. Spurrier would come over and talk. And then you watch Alshon's out there running routes constantly. And I cannot say enough about the work ethic of Alshon Jeffrey and how that helped him. Xavier Legette, same type of guy. This off season between his junior and senior year, he's like he smelt it, and he went after it and attacked it and got it. And Nyck Harbor approaches it with that kind of tenacity. He's a 5-star athlete, obviously. So that's an encouraging sign, because if you can get him going, everybody talks about who's the wide receiver one, which I think I like. I'm fine with having a wide receiver one, right? I'd rather have 3 of them, like some schools. I think that in 2023, you had a wide receiver one, Legette, but you didn't really have anybody else, and that hurts you sometimes. Last year, I think there was a collection. Nobody ever jumped up and took that wide receiver one spot. I don't know that it hurt the Gamecocks. I think there's a lot of reasons for it. Injuries being one. That's the one room that did not escape the. I call it an annoying injury season at receiver because it was like once a guy got going, he was hurt. And, blah 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 blah. Up and down, in and out, in and out, in and out. Let's hope it's not the case this year. Plus, there's competition coming in at receiver as well with the freshmen. But I don't know that you necessarily. I think if you have three good ones and they're all good, that's better than having one great one. But I'll say this too. On the flip side, having a 6'5" guy that can run 4.4, if he can jump up and get it and things like that, and he's coming on. You could see it. You could see kind of oh yeah, this is how you do it. That's good too. So I'll take that. So what does he have to do? Here's what I want to see. And I mentioned the Missouri game a lot because those are not the types of things so we haven't seen Nyck run past a defender on a fade. We hadn't seen, and the touchdown he caught was wide open. The corner blitzed, and it was a good read by Lenore Sellers and all that. But we haven't seen a lot of plays like that, And I think that the open field stuff is what I think of when I think of what can this guy ultimately be. And it just hasn't happened a lot, right? You want to see a situation where Harbor gets the ball, be it a post, a fade, a slant, whatever, and house and runs away from everybody else. He's a fast person. He is not a fast football player right now, consistently enough. And that's not easy. That's easier said than done. There's a lot of fast guys that don't play fast. And it's usually because they're unsure and they're learning and they're not completely comfortable yet. And you saw last year he got more and more and more and more comfortable. And my understanding is that process is accelerating. I don't know that 2 weeks of spring practice is some magical fairy dust that turns him into Randy Moss, like the video game. I think it's a process that's ongoing throughout time. And I think that what's a good goal for him next year? I think to get to 45 or so catches. Just keep, that he doubled his catch total this year. He got very consistent at the end of this past year. So this coming year, because I think now we're at the point where 2024 is like last year and then this coming year. That's like the time change, which hit me like a ton of bricks this morning. I'm like, wow. It just kind of comes when you start talking about last year versus this year. I think get 40, 45 catches is good. I think seeing the speed in the open field for him is good. I think as he becomes more comfortable with the ball in his hands, he will get the ball more. I mean, Lenore Sellers is going to look for him. Things like reverses and kick returns and things of that nature, which I am intrigued by the kick return thing. I'll be honest. But did you notice on that play against Illinois, threw it across the field, a guy that's that fast on the track? Did you ever feel like he turned the jets completely on? Or maybe it was on like medium high, like if it was a burner, medium high instead of high. I don't know. I felt that way. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You tell me. But playing fast, play fast. Because once he learns to play fast and use all the tools in his toolbox, he can be very, 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 very good. Very, very good. Because he's a freak athlete. I mean, that's everybody wants a receiver like this. So it's just a matter of getting the receiver part of it down. So Nyck Harbor. So that's a good North Star is 45 catches this next year. More stuff in the open field, more speed on display, all that good stuff. I think he's done fine as far as learning the position goes. He's contributed. He was the leading wide receiver. Mazio Bennett had more catches, but yardage wise, among the receivers, he led them with 376, which isn't that great, but as far as a receiver yardage number, But, there were a lot of guys kind of bunched in there, but he had the most yards. So among the receivers, Josh Simon obviously was the leading receiver on the football team, but he was a tight end. So among the wide receivers specifically. So yeah, I have pretty good confidence that Nyck Harbor will take another step forward. How big that step is largely up to what happens, how he develops, practice, him, the work that needs to continue, the passing game in general. Usage. A lot of people talk about usage with him. That really doesn't come into play until a guy is playing as fast as he can and is completely comfortable. Because you don't want to, you're always as a coordinator, you're looking out for like the offense as a whole, not just one guy. And if he's not comfortable, what's going to happen? It's going to be a lost yardage play. It's going to be a turnover, something like that. So that's probably why you didn't see, they were like, well, he's doing good enough at receiver right now. Let's not throw more at him. But as we saw with the players I've mentioned, Xavier Legette, you get the ball more and more, the more you are able to do it. So we'll see what happens. But I think 40, 45 catches next year would really be a good year for Nyck. And then the next year, that's that next step. That's what starts to get, as they say, the contract year for the NFL and all that good stuff. But hey, look, if he can have a crazy good season this year and be able to go to the draft after 2025, that probably means Carolina's won a lot of games. So that's fine too. But I think that just looking at his progress year over year, it's incremental. And I think that that's going to help Carolina. I really do. I think Nyck Harbor uh, is one of those guys that potentially is just guys develop at their own pace, no matter how many stars they're rated. There's reasons why he wasn't, an all American wide receiver right away, namely because he wasn't a wide receiver out of high school. They're trying to make him into one. And I got to give the guy credit because if you're that athletic and you're the five, I mean, it would be easier just to say, well, I can just go someplace else and be a wide receiver and track star. And all he's done is just say, all right, now I'm here in South Carolina. I'm going to work. So he continues to work very, very hard. And that should be exciting for Gamecock football fans as we head into spring practice. Don't forget, Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show later today. JB, John Whittle, I believe Mike Morgan is in. Unless he's calling a conference tournament or something somewhere, that could be a factor. I know we're going to have a JC and Morgan tomorrow. Dan Wetzel of ESPN will join us, the author of Death to the BCS. He had just taken the job at ESPN and had something come up. We were going to do it Friday, but Tuesday's good. It's always better to do JC and Morgan earlier in the week for me. I like doing it that way, although I was ready to go Friday. But he had to politely postpone until Tuesday. So we've got him on. He's always a good conversation. We talked to him about this time last year. It was conference tournament week because I remember I was en route. I went through Nashville and watched the Gamecocks play Arkansas, which, by the way, is who they play in the opening round coming up in Nashville this week. The Lamont Paris and his team. So I don't know. Can he go to 4-0 against Calipari? I don't know. But watched them play Arkansas. They won. And then I drove on to Greenville that Friday. I remember doing JC and Morgan and the show from Phil's house. And so it was around. So we talked to him about 1 year ago. So it's a yearly check in with Dan Wetzel on JC and Morgan. Be sure to check that out. Also, Phil and I will be along with the show with a bunch of topics today as we roll through our Monday in Gamecock land. All right, folks, this has been Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Appreciate it. Have a great day.